Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. So thank you again, everyone in our audience, for joining us today. Today we have a fantastic panel here of current students who are studying degrees within our engineering and technology subject area. So we're going to be here to answer all of your questions that you have today. I see someone's already found the Q&A, so that's great. That was going to be my next housekeeping note, is that if you have any questions for us here today, please post them in the Q&A, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen. And if you have the same question that someone has already posted, you can actually use the little thumbs up button or the like button, and that will send your question up to the top of the list, so we can make sure to try to get to that faster. I also want to make a general announcement that because we are here today with current students, we won't be answering questions about the application process or application documents, things like that, because we want to reserve our time here to hear about our current students' experiences actually studying the programs and things like that. So if you have questions about the application, I would refer you to our other events. We have a lot of other things happening to help walk you through the application process. I'm actually going to put some links here in the chat now that will help you out. And the link at the bottom is where you can find our future events, including we have 2 events next week specifically about the master's degrees and how to apply to master's degrees that will walk you through every step of the process and answer any questions you have about that. So join us next Thursday, same time actually, at 4 o'clock or at 10 o'clock for that session. But without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name is Audrey Savage, and I am an International Communications Officer here at Lund University, working in the International Recruitment Office. So I'll be moderating the panel today. And we have a great group of current students with us. So why don't we go around, guys, and if you can share who you are, where you're from, and what you're studying. And perhaps even just to save us time of going around twice, your favorite thing about your program that you're studying. So we can start with Trevina.
Hi, I'm Trevina. I'm from the US. I'm studying a master's in virtual reality and augmented reality. And I would say so far, it's only my first year in the program. My favorite thing about it is the interaction design course. You get to really talk to a lot of different people.
Great, thanks. Max?
Hello everyone. My name is Maximiliano. I'm from Chile. And I'm studying water resources engineering. And so far, I'm also in my first year, but I can tell you that what's been really good of my program is that they offer a very broad or wide range of different subjects within hydraulics that I have found to be very comprehensive, very, very complete.
Great, thanks. Alex?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra, or Alex, and I'm from the US. And I'm studying the logistics and supply chain management program. I'm in my second year, so have a bit under my belt here. My favorite part about my program is it's very interactive with the industry. So we have a lot of guest speakers from all the companies involved in logistics and supply chain management come in all of the classes and to look at the practical applications of all the work that we're doing, which has been really fascinating to see. So that's my favorite part. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Alex. And Limita?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Limita. I'm from Embedded Electronics Engineering. I'm in my second year. And the best part of my course is, I think the faculty, they're very supportive. And I think that's very important during the course. And like Alex said, that even it's very interactive and you get to meet a lot of guest speakers from different industry. So yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. And Momo?
Yeah, I'm Momo. Hey, good to see you all. And I'm studying disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. And I'm in my second year as well. And just like Alex and Limita, I really enjoy about the program that the professors make a huge effort to make it as practical as any university course can be and invite a lot of guest speakers. And I mean, also given the current pandemic situation, this is a very up-to-date course or like program to study.
That's very true. I can imagine. Great, thanks everyone. We have someone in the chat who's wondering if that we have a representative from food tech and nutrition. Unfortunately, we don't today. However, if you look at the links that I've given you in the chat, there is a link to chat with some of our current students where we have both a current student and an alumni from that program that you can talk to. So perhaps after the event, if you want to jump over there and chat with a student from that program, you can. But I think we'll still have some interesting info to talk about here about the faculty in general for you here today. So hopefully it's still helpful. But jumping in, I'm really curious to hear actually how all of you found Lund and found your programs and perhaps why you chose it. I know Sweden is not necessarily the most common study destination for people who are going abroad. So how did we get you here to Lund? Maybe we'll go the other way around this time. So we'll start with you, Momo.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question because it's not difficult to answer because in the disaster risk management field in Europe, there's I think only 5 programs. So, and then Lund was really one of them, and especially putting an emphasis on natural hazards instead of industrial hazards, for example. And then this climate change adaptation thing really made it unique. And I have to say one great benefit is that I didn't have to pay tuition fees in Sweden, which for some of the others programs that were out there, I would have to. So that was a huge bonus.
Definitely. For those in the audience who maybe aren't aware, if you're coming from an EU country with EU citizenship, as Momo is, then you are exempt from tuition fees, which is definitely a great benefit. For those of you not from the EU, which I believe is the rest of our panelists here today, you are liable for tuition fees, I'm afraid, but there are a lot of scholarships you can apply to as well, which again, in that webinar next week, they'll give you all the details about scholarships as well. But great. Limitha, what about you? How did you find Lund and Sweden?
So basically the course, I think it's one of the best universities, especially for my embedded electronics. I think it's like one of the best courses offered here. And yeah, I had a scholarship luckily. So I think that's why I wanted to come here. And yeah.
Great. Alex?
So I've studied abroad in Sweden for my bachelor's and have really enjoyed it. It was a very short time. It was maybe 3.5 months, but I had been wanting to come back to Sweden for the longest time. And finally had the chance when I decided to go back to grad school. And I only applied in Sweden, but I picked Lund because it was the best program for logistics that I was able to find in Sweden. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Max, how about you?
Well, I wanted to work more or get more studies on the water reuse and water treatment areas. After working, I graduated a few years ago from a bachelor's, and I have already a hydraulics background, so I didn't want to go over much of it again. So I found that in Lund, you have a whole semester dedicated to your thesis, which you can work in whatever you find most attractive, of course, with a teacher and everything, but you have that freedom. And also you can actually get some courses on some specific topics that you can propose yourself or work out with teachers. So you can actually get more than one semester to work on topics of your own interest. So that was something that really appealed to me. And of course, a scholarship also helped me. But what Alex said, I think Limita said as well, that it's one of the top universities in Sweden. It's, I think, if not the top, the number 2, but also the Swedish industry is very solid in engineering. It's like worldwide known. So it wasn't a hard decision to come here if I could.
Great. Yeah, I see a lot of nods there about the Swedish industry being a big reason, definitely. And Trevina, was that the case for you as well?
For me, it's a bit different in that I really wanted to study virtual reality and augmented reality. And a lot of the master's programs focus on a broader scope of technologies called creative technologies. And that includes like mobile apps and web design. And I'm not really too interested in that. So Lund was really like the only place that was offering this specialized master, and that's why I chose it.
Great, wonderful. Thanks, everyone. So I'm also curious to hear a little bit about kind of what a typical week is like in your program. So that's a question we get quite often. How much time would you say you spend in class versus doing independent study, things like that? So maybe we'll start this time with Max.
Well, of course, at the very beginning, it was a little bit different because of the COVID situation, but overall now, I think there's, I would say 30% of the time where we are left to work on our own pace or from wherever we want to work. There's obviously always the option to go work at the university with other classmates, but there's also a certain degree of freedom where you can take some suggested periods of time where you should study, or they suggest you to do it with your own schedule.
Great. And Alex, is that the same for logistics and supply chain management?
I'm not sure about other programs, but for us, we have a ton of group work. And in fact, all of my classes these past year and a half has been group work. And so I find myself spending maybe 30% of my time in classes, and then like 50% of my time in doing group work, either in person or over Zoom. And then maybe we have some tasks that we can do independently, but very little time is spent working independently and doing kind of own work. So that's, at least for my program, that's true.
Great. I saw a lot of nods there. So is that the same for everyone for the most part? A good breakdown of maybe less in-class time, more group work?
Well, actually, for my course, I think from my experience, I think it's individual, but I think it's a little bit more work in the first year, I think, because I think we have to even get adjusted to it, at least for me, because I was like, first time I'm outside and it was a little difficult. But so first semester was a little too much work. I think after that, it just became a little smoother and it's a little better, I guess. We have more time for ourselves these days. So.
Great, that's great to hear. And so we have a question in the chat actually for you, Momo, about what are the common jobs that disaster risk management graduates go into? I know you haven't necessarily gotten to that point yet, but I don't know if that's something maybe they've talked to you about what careers to expect in the future. And they're also wondering in particular what your career aspirations are after your studies.
Yes, I think I will only briefly touch upon this because otherwise I can talk about this for hours. So maybe just drop me a message in the Unibuddy chat option, and then we can have extensive conversations about that. But to keep it short, the nice thing about this program is that we can work everywhere. So we have people working really locally at the municipality level, at the state level, but we also have people working for the UN. So this is really the nice thing about this program, that it can go into very different directions, and also it just depends on what you want to specialize in and where you see yourself. Is it more at the policy level, or is it more this hands-on talking to people locally? So, and my own aspirations are still in the making, and I hope to find it out by the end of the next semester, because then my master's is done. So let's keep our fingers crossed that I will have made up my mind by then.
Great, thanks. And I actually, because I know we've had a few people join since I first mentioned it, and since I sent it, I'm going to send the links in the chat again, because if you joined after I posted them, you won't see them. So as Momo mentioned, the fourth link there is where you can actually talk to a lot of our students, and all of our students on the panel here today, you can talk with more extensively there. So if you have a question that you feel like, wow, that was an interesting answer, I want to hear more, have a chat with them after the session there. But I actually want to piggyback on that question a little bit and hear from all of you about the career and networking opportunities within your program. Have there been any options for you to kind of network with local companies potentially, or is it something that they've talked to you about, kind of what to expect in a future career? Maybe Trevina, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, for me, that's a bit difficult because my program is quite new. So I'm the first, well, my fellow classmates and I are the first cohort. So there is some talk of like working with industry specialists, especially for a project course that is, I believe, in the first semester of the second year. But so far, I've just taken advantage of the general career opportunities at LTH. or the engineering faculty itself. There's ORCOD in November, which is a great opportunity to talk to a lot of companies across Sweden and Skåne province, and to get some opportunities there. VR and AR is still like a bit of a niche technology. So I had to like talk to some people and say, you know, you could use some VR in your company. And they're like, maybe, yeah. So, but I think there's opportunities for anyone if you're looking to make use of those.
Great. And Limitha, how about you with embedded electronics engineering? Have you had a lot of networking opportunities?
Yes, I think plenty. First of all, I think in the first year itself, our lecturers make sure that we have like a good communication with all of them, because they get them as guest speakers, and where they even tell us about the opportunities. And there are so many regular webinars also conducted by my course coordinator. And apart from that, like Trevina said, we have ORCAD and we can make more connections there. And I think there are plenty of opportunities as well. We have like lots of companies for electronics here in Sweden. And also, I think one good thing, because I'm not really sure, at least in my experience, because we never really had the need to know Swedish here, because I think it's like a criteria for other courses. But in our course, it doesn't really demand because it's like engineering. So I think that's one good thing. So we can do it in English.
Great. And Momo, Alex, Max, anything you want to add in, or would you agree that it's been kind of the same for your programs? Okay, great. Just keeping in mind our time here. We might not have time for everyone to answer every question, but just want to make sure we know what applies for everyone. And kind of tagging along in the same idea, we have a question in the Q&A now about if the university helps in job placement after finishing degrees. I think I can actually take that the university won't find a job for you necessarily, but there are a lot of opportunities in regarding career fairs and things like that, like the ARCAD that they've already mentioned here today in our panel. We also have a career services and alumni services office who put on a lot of networking events and things. So there are opportunities available for the university to kind of help you make those connections, but they aren't going to go around and offer a job to everyone, unfortunately. That would be nice. Max, something to add there?
Yeah, just as an example, maybe it can help if your master has you have to do a thesis for your masters. Sometimes the thesis you can do them in collaboration with some companies, so can be easier that way also, because it's not, as you said, Audrey, that the university finds a job for you, but it does have professors working already with companies, so it might be easier depending on what subjects you're working with.
Definitely, that's a great point, and something that I think a lot of students do is kind of connect their thesis or their field work in some way to a company and kind of have an in that way. And a lot of the programs, as we already mentioned, I know Alex, you mentioned that as well earlier, have a lot of connections within the industry in the area already that can kind of, hopefully they can connect you a bit with that. Great. And speaking about the thesis, is that something that any of you are doing, those of you that are in your second year, connecting a thesis with a company or an area of interest? Momo's very enthusiastically shaking your head, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I am actually. I am collaborating with the University of Bern in Switzerland, because they've had a research project going on risk communication in Switzerland for forest fires at the moment. And I was very much into risk communication and wanted to stay within the European grounds kind of. And so I was very happy to make that connection. And I think both Lund University and Bern University were really happy that I'm now the bridge between the two. So yeah, I'm partnered up with a research institution.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. Great. What about the rest of you that are finishing up this year? Alex, what are you thinking about for your thesis?
So I've partnered up. I actually am working with another student. So that's the nice thing in Sweden, or at least in my program, we can work in pairs on our thesis, which is immensely helpful. But we are partnering up with a startup company in Lund, also found through our professor, which was very helpful. So now we're going to be working on a specific application of video cameras in warehouses, which I know doesn't sound as exciting, but it's quite exciting. So I think it'll be nice.
Great. Limitha, what about you?
So yeah, I am also doing my thesis right now. I've already started it at a company. So like I said, he was like, we had a invited guest lecture from a company called Synergic, which is basically a startup by Lund University. So I made contact with him then. Then I got in as a summer intern, and they offered me thesis as well. So I think that's how most of them in my course as well find thesis as well. Like just find an internship and then. Like then get into thesis and then hopefully a job. But yeah. So
definitely great. Max and Trevina, I know you're both in your first year, so probably a bit early to be thinking about your thesis topic yet. Have they in the program talked to you at all about kind of planning ahead for that, or do you know if there's any kind of support that's going to be coming in the future for preparing for your thesis? I guess I'll let either of you jump in if you want.
I guess I can go. I'm not entirely sure, but I think there's like some plans to talk with like companies in the area in Sweden to see if they're interested in supporting master's thesis students from my program. But it's not entirely set in stone yet. We're still quite new. So
still quite early, yeah.
Yeah.
Max,
same. But they have told us that in order to find a thesis topic, it's easier if you talk to professors that already might have something on their minds, and you should just go knocking on doors and seeing which subject or area you're more willing to work with. But it's pretty early still, but it's supposed to be not too stressful of a process.
Great, yeah, and the ability to even go around and knock on professors' doors and contact professors quite informally is, I think, something that surprises a lot of students when they come to Sweden. So I'd like to maybe ask about that a little bit. If you could just explain more about the professor-student relationship that you have in your program. Maybe this time we'll start with Alex.
That's a good question, because I don't know how many people know, but in Sweden, it's a very informal relationships. You call your professors by their first name. It's Joachim and Henrik and all these. So it's great because it makes it feel like you have more of a direct relationship. And like, I feel like I can email my professors at any time or talk to them at any time about whatever issues I'm having. It really doesn't, there's no boundary, but there's boundaries, but it's not like I feel nervous about reaching out to them. So if I have any problems, I feel comfortable. And I think that's great because I feel like it's really helped me kind of be more participatory in classes, I guess. Yeah, that's been my experience.
Anything anyone wants to add on to that? I'll kind of open the floor. Momo?
Yeah, I totally go along with what Alex has said. Something that is very unique that I think I haven't experienced before is that at the end of each class, course, there is an evaluation form that's being sent out. And our cohort kind of took it quite seriously to answer very honestly. And then we had feedback sessions with the professors afterwards, and they've been so responsive to that. And they've made such good and great changes that the next year can actually benefit from. So I think that's that willingness to improve your courses, at least how I experience it in my program, is just really, really impressed me.
That's great to hear. Wow. And Trevina, you had something to add as well, I think?
Yeah, I will say, like, so far my courses, I haven't experienced like the feedback that Momo has, which I think is great, by the way. Hopefully I'll see that in the future. But also, like, I notice professors are willing to like also interact with you on other platforms like Discord, for example, we use in my computer graphics courses. And that's been really great. You can just like ask questions, like quick questions on assignments. And yeah, the same thing as everyone else has said. Professors are quite friendly and easily approachable. So.
Wonderful. Any other comments before we go to the next question? Sounds good. Okay, so we have a two-part question here in the chat. The first part is for you, Alex, about supply chain. What are the common venues graduates tend to go in towards? So I guess we'll answer that one, then I'll ask the second part of the question.
Yes, so a lot of I think supply chain, you can go into anything and everything. I mean, most people think about going to companies like IKEA and Tetra Pak. Those are like the big Swedish companies that specifically focus on logistics and supply chain. You can work from anything from an airline to a government organization to I'm thinking of working for a humanitarian organization like the UN, for example. So it can really be a very diverse field. Or a diverse set of companies and organizations that you can work for after. It really depends on what niche you're looking for. But I think supply chain, I think with the global pandemic, as we've seen, like it's supply chain and logistics are such a big part of how things move in the world that I think there's going to be no shortage of jobs for everyone everywhere. Everyone everywhere after you graduate. I mean, this is going to be happening for the next few years. So yeah.
Absolutely. You've picked the right career, right time, definitely.
Yeah.
Great. And the second part of this question is kind of for everyone about perhaps explaining a bit more about the nature of your given assignments. I'm guessing this means if you have more papers or exams or projects, like what is sort of the type of assignments and assessments you have? So maybe Limitha, we'll start with you for your program.
Okay, so for my course, I think it's majorly with labs. So you would like have to like do some simulations and layouts and stuff, and then like write a report. And some courses like even ask for like a presentation, like you have to present a paper or something. Then I think, yeah, it's not too much actually, but I think each course will just have like 2 or 3 labs, and then maybe 1 paper presentation. So yeah, it's not that much actually.
Okay, great. And Max, how about for water resources engineering?
First, well, I've only been to 4 courses so far, but it has been not so heavily reliant on exams, written exams, and more on, I forgot to mention the group projects. But so there's been a bunch of those, but it's not like overcharged at all. Like it seems to be very, balanced, and we've had so it's usually 1 group project per course and 1 exam. So most of your grade goes either of those 2 ways, and then you have small tasks during the semester where it's what we call pass or fail, is that you have to do it good enough, but they don't really grade it. They tell you if you pass or if you have to do it again. So it's mostly to capture the week's lectures or something like that. It's not like a huge loads of work to take home.
Got you. And Trevina, how about in VR? What are your assignments like?
I think it's quite similar to Limitha's experience, where we do have a lot of projects that are more practical, do simulations and do projects. Like in my interaction design course, you're supposed to design some sort of app. There's like 3 different courses or 3 different tracks you can go, like smart city or something for museums, for example. But they are either pass or fail, or a very small percentage of your grade, and then the larger percentage is exams. So yeah.
Great. And Momo and Alex, would you say it's kind of the same for your programs or different for either of you?
You have a lot of reports, and for every report, it's also a presentation. So you really get to practice your presentation skills in my program.
Well, it seemed like you agreed with that. Definitely. So I think the nature of your assignments, it seems, really depends a lot on which kind of area you're going into here in our School of Engineering, because we have quite a lot of programs like perhaps Limitha and Max, who are in more kind of traditional engineering programs. And then we have like disaster risk management and logistics are not necessarily as heavy on the lab experience, I would imagine, and more on, as you mentioned, things like presentations and kind of learning how that all works. And then VR and AR is kind of in its own world with the tech side of the engineering. So a lot of different options. And if you take a look at our program list, you'll see even more. I know programs like food tech and nutrition, for example, a lot of programs that have kind of different aspects of engineering. So Limitha, I'm going to come back to you for a second. So we have a question here about electronic engineering, asking if there's many exchange study opportunities or cooperation opportunities in other countries, like a university or research institute in China or the US, for example.
Yes, I think there beginning of every autumn semester, there is like this opportunity where you can take up your thesis work or go for an exchange, I think for like one semester to California University, I guess. But there is definitely, and I think most of, not many, I think at least 2 to 3 students are there in my course who are from different university as well. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. Yes.
Okay, great. And I would expand that even actually to ask about, for all of you, if there are opportunities for that kind of practical experience, maybe not necessarily study abroad, or maybe there is study abroad, but the opportunity to do an internship, for example, or we talked a little bit, I guess, about doing theses with companies, but what sort of practical experiences exist within your programs? I guess I'll leave that open for anyone who would like to jump in there.
I guess I'll go with my program. It is a bit peculiar in that we don't really have an opportunity to study abroad. Maybe with the thesis, but then I'm not entirely sure if that would be available at the moment. So I think most of the opportunities would be like on your own time during the summer. That would be when you can go abroad.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the opportunities for exchange always vary depending on the program. So some programs do and some programs don't, definitely. Though I guess you are already studying abroad. Wow. So
yeah.
you get that a little bit. Great. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share? Has anyone done any kind of research or internships just here in Lund or in the area? I know this has been kind of also a bizarre 2 years as well with the Corona situation, so there hasn't maybe been as many opportunities as there normally would be. Great. We also have a question here in the chat about if anyone is preferring to proceed to a PhD program at Lund after graduation, or I guess maybe anywhere, not necessarily at Lund. I'll also leave that open. Is anyone planning that?
I was thinking about it. Well, I think for a doctoral position in Lund and also in Sweden, you have to apply for it like a job. So it's not really like a 100% guarantee I'll get it. But I would like to continue. Also, I was thinking like going abroad because I also like to travel. Of course, I'm in Sweden and I'm from the US. So we'll see what happens. But I would like to get my doctorates for sure.
Great. And Momo, you as well?
Yeah, I'm considering it, although I'm not quite informed about how the process is at LU at the moment, but for my department, I know that they want quite some years of work experience actually before you're allowed to do your PhD. So maybe I'm gonna work and then come back to Lund, who knows?
Great. Yeah, I think it's quite common for pretty much all of our programs here at Lund that I would say at least anywhere from, depending on the program, 20% to a 60% chunk of students decide to go on for a PhD. So that's quite common across most of our programs. And as Trevina said, just to mention very briefly, I suppose, PhDs in Sweden are actually considered like a job. So you're getting a full-time salary and benefits and everything, and you apply for it just like you would apply for a job opening. So it's not necessarily a program the way that you apply for our master's and bachelor's programs. So each department basically posts their PhD opportunity at different times in the year, like a job, basically. So yeah, that gives you a little more insight into that. But some great questions we've had here in the Q&A so far. Keep them coming. If anyone has any questions in the audience, feel free to post those. But I'd also like to ask, we talked a bit earlier about the professor relationship, but I'm also curious about the relationship between you as classmates within your cohorts. So what is the makeup of each of your programs in terms of how many students are there, and are they mostly Swedish or mostly international? What's kind of the breakdown of your courses? So maybe Max, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I know that on average, my program, it's around 12 to 15 people. I might be wrong, but that's what I've heard, that coming from different countries, but there are many more Swedish people also joining the program. I also have been struggling to estimate the exact number because the people they have been studying here, their bachelors, sometimes they take more courses, or they like in the different order as we do. So I don't have all of my classmates in the same courses, but I would say it's roughly 60 to 70% of Swedish people. So that's great because you get to be much closer to the Swedish culture. If you are interested in learning the language, you can practice with them. And yeah, but so far in this year, it's been me and 6 other classmates that we've joined the program. So we are outnumbered, but it's been great. And I really enjoy talking about these small things I learn every day in Sweden, hear about Sweden in general with them. It's great.
Wonderful. And Momo, how about in disaster risk management? What's kind of the breakdown for your program?
Yeah, we're a very small cohort. We always range between 20 and 24 students, which is really lovely because we then grow very close very quickly. We have a very diverse student background, not only from educational backgrounds, so non-engineers and engineering backgrounds, and also internationally we have students from all over the world. But due to the pandemic, it's been mostly North America and Europe. But I think as soon as COVID will at one point lighten up, then the cohorts will also be much, much more international again. Yeah.
Definitely. I know pretty much everything about the last 2 years has been a bit unusual, so that's quite true. Alex, for your program?
My program is also fairly small. We have in my cohort, we have 9 students, primarily internationals, and we actually have 2 Swedish students who are in the international master's program. But just like Max, we also take classes with the Swedish students who are in their 4th and 5th years of basically majoring in this particular specialization of logistics and supply chain management. So primarily my classes are, I would say, like 80% Swedish students and a very small percentage of my program. So it's been great. I got to meet a lot of Swedish people, and now that we're in person, I get to see all of them, interact with them, make friends. It's great.
Great. Limitha, how about you?
I think it's a little difficult for my course because I think if I'm talking only about international students, we have like roughly 15 or 20, I guess. But because the Swedish people are like in and out a lot, because we have like this liberty to take course from any like department like nanoelectronics or physics. So it's really a different number. It can vary from like, I think 15 to 100 also. Like we had a course where we had like 100 people. So yeah, but interaction, I think it was difficult initially because we had just one course. I think the first last year one of our courses was like offline, so that's the only time I met my classmates, and after that everything was online, and I met them only like previous study period. So yeah, but I think it's a little difficult to know who is my classmate over Zoom. Nobody turns on the camera.
At least it sounds like you don't have the professors who insist on the cameras on. Then that's both a blessing and a curse, I suppose.
Yeah, they gave up like long ago.
Yeah. So to just give a brief explanation there, which I think Alex, Max, and Limitha have now mentioned, if you are a Swedish student who starts your bachelor's program in Swedish, they actually study for 5 years and do their bachelor's and their master's combined. So that's why our English master's programs kind of jump into that cohort, is what they mean. So you have students who have kind of already been studying their bachelor's and they jump into the group that comes in for just an English master's, if that makes sense. And Trevina, you're in the first year, as you've mentioned, of your program. So I'm sure this might change as it goes, but how is your cohort looking this year? I think you actually already mentioned it's quite small, yes?
Yes, it's 8 students, and we see each other like quite often because in my program it's very rigid, as in we have like mandatory courses we have to take every semester, and we don't have electives. So we are usually put together in a group, and everyone knows that it's us because we're often the only Swedish students there. But in terms of background, we have people from quite a few different continents, Asia, Middle East, from North America, Europe, people who've traveled and worked and who just came from education. And I think in general, we're quite friendly and we know our program director quite well. So it's kind of like a, I don't know, a very good professional family, you know. You gotta, of course, have some distance because you're classmates and professor, but it's still very, very friendly.
That's great to hear. And I know most of you that have been here for 2 years at least weren't able to spend time at the facilities very much last year, but we have been back online, I think, or not online, offline. Getting the terms mixed up now, back in campus teaching since November 1st. So also hopefully by the time any of you in the audience reach us next autumn, knock on wood, you will be studying fully in person. However, do you have anything to share about what the facilities are like now that you are studying back on campus, the libraries and kind of the study area? I know our engineering faculty maybe has quite old-fashioned 60s buildings on the outside, but beautiful, I think, area around the buildings with the lake and everything. Who would like to, I will kind of open that up for anyone who would like to share more about the facilities. Momo, go for it.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not much of an on-campus study person, so I'd rather study at home, so maybe some of the others can fill in on that. What I really, really like, and it's just been such a big difference from my old university, at least in the V house, so every study direction kind of has their own houses as well. At least in our house, there's microwave rooms where you can just like heat up your lunch. And I have to say, this is so nice. It just saves my day so often between lectures, just being able to have a cheap lunch because you brought it yourself and also warm lunch because you were able to heat it up. And it's just this like nice lunch vibe with all the microwaves going. So I really have to say, this is a small thing that I really appreciate about being back on campus.
That's a great point. Yes, I believe most, if not all, of the study buildings have rooms like that, as well as some cafes sprinkled around campus. So if you decide not to bring your lunch, you can buy lunch. Anything? Yes, Trevina?
So I would say for my program, we have a special place where we all hang out. We hang out in the VR lab. So there we have access to like different headsets, like HoloLens, Oculus Rift, all sorts of haptics, like everything you can think of with VR, AR. I think now they're like refurbishing the room. So it's like there's one main room where you have like a lot of huge setups like cages and things where you get to try out applications or test applications for VR or AR. And then we have another room where it's like a computer room, kind of like a classroom where you can like write on the whiteboards and brainstorm. And like, it's quite cozy, I would say. And yeah, like my program, we can access like the design center and the A building, but not their microwave rooms, which sucks. But at least we can access the microwave rooms in D building, or E building, sorry. So like, at least that's something. So we're kind of spread out, even though we're small.
Great. And Alex, you have your hand up.
Yeah, your setup sounds amazing. I should join your program.
Yes, please.
Just to add to that, I don't think the design center has microwave center, by the way, but more importantly, most buildings do have study rooms for students, like little study rooms that can fit maybe 2 to 5 people. So that's really nice that you can go in and like it's first come first serve, but if you get a room, then it's a really great place to meet with your team and for all the group work that you're doing and really discuss and whiteboard. So it's I've never seen that in other places, but I think that's a really nice feature about a lot of the buildings here.
Great. And something I actually learned when we spoke with our architecture and design students the other week is that the design building supposedly has a nap room and showers. So if you want to just stay overnight, you can. You'll have to all go exploring next time you're in the design building and see if you find that come exam time. Great. Well, we have about 15 minutes left. So if anyone in the audience has any other questions, please feel free to post them. Otherwise, we're going to keep chatting here as well. I'd love to ask a few questions more generally about your studying experience at Lund and what it's like being an international student. So perhaps first, is there anything that was a shock to you when you came to Sweden? Any cultural shocks or things that surprised you when you first arrived? Maybe Limitha, we'll start with you.
I think the only bigger one, a shock, I think, is the when my professor was like, because we in India, we say we address our professor as sir. So when I was like, sir, he's like, just call me Yoki, man. You're not supposed to call sir, it's rude. So I was like, okay. And it took like, I think at least 6 months for me to get used to call him Yokim or Ricard or something. So I was like, okay. I think that's a little, was a shock. But I think everything else was good. I mean, people are very, very, very friendly. I think that's the best thing here, like be it the faculty or students. It's really, it's informal. I mean, it's not completely it's informal, but there is some sort of respect, but there's still like, you can speak your mind out. Like you can just go into the staff rooms or just talk to your professor about anything. So I think that's really nice. So it's not like a shock, but maybe like a surprise. So yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Max, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna quote Limita on this. That she said that people are friendly. I got kind of a reverse culture shock because people, or I don't know, I was watching YouTube videos about going to Sweden or whatever, and like I heard that people were not friendly. So when I came here, that was my shock. Like people were really, really friendly, especially like my Swedish classmates. They were just happy to talk to you. Of course, they ask you where you're from, and then they ask you a bunch of questions more. You get to talk really easily, so it's really good. Other culture shocks, I would say, well, the system belaget thing is very interesting, I would say. So that would be a culture shock, I would say, for me, but not in a bad way. And yeah, I think maybe because when I knew I was coming here, I started researching a bunch of stuff about Swedish culture. Maybe I got prepared to that, so I didn't feel like a strong culture shock. I do get weird vibes now that it's very, very dark. And it has been dark for almost an hour now, and it's not even 5 o'clock. That would be, I think, my biggest shock. Would be not even cultural shock, maybe geographical shock or something like that.
Definitely. I think people are often quite prepared for Swedes to be very, I don't know, reserved is usually what the word that you hear a lot. But I think being a student town, often everyone's just excited to meet other people. So we get a bit of an exception to that, which is nice.
Yes.
Trevina, what about you? What was your culture shock?
So to be honest, I don't know, I don't really have like too many culture shocks because I've traveled a bit and I've lived in a few different countries in Europe. So for me, there wasn't like a lot of shocks, like some frustrations with like bureaucracy and things, but yeah, nothing major.
Okay, great. How about you, Momo?
I'm trying to think. I think one of the biggest things I had to adapt to is that Swedish people are very nice, and they also very much look to incorporate everybody's opinion if possible. And coming from Germany, where sometimes it's very much like this is how we do it and then we do it, I had to adapt a bit to that. And I mean, I learned a lot from this, to really incorporate everyone. And then also the fika thing. Fika is, for those of you who don't know, is a small break that Swedish people take very often during the course of their day, and you can take it with anybody and at any time, and it really just means you have a short little break, you might have a coffee and maybe something sweet to eat, and you just socialize and refresh your brain quickly. And also coming from Germany, being very efficiently minded at the beginning, I was very annoyed, but it really adds to getting closer to your peers and also to your professors, and so I really came to appreciate that.
Definitely, thanks. And Alex, anything that surprised you?
It's hard to add to what's already been mentioned. I think to echo what Max was saying, is the darkness in November. I think that was kind of a shock for me last year, not having been expecting the sun to start setting so early. So like the sunrise and the sunset just starts decreasing very rapidly in November, and next thing you know, it's dark so quickly, and it just what's happening. But the nice thing is, in at least in here in Lund, there's everyone putting up their Christmas lights, because so it gets really bright with all the lights at night. So that becomes a nice way to combat and battle the darkness. And I guess it becomes cozy, as the Swedes like to call it. So, yeah.
Definitely. I have my background on here now, or I could show you. I have my Christmas tree right next to me now for the coziness. Great. Well, we have 3 really great questions here in the chat to pop in here at the end. So first, Sebastian asked, what does the student life outside courses and classrooms look like? Are there many places to go and interesting things to do in and around Lund? So Trevina, I know you've been involved in the student life quite a bit, so maybe I'll direct that to you.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of things to do. Some of them, a lot of them are like campus related. So you have the student nations, part of Sudskånska, but I believe there's like about 13 other nations, and they each have their own kind of theme, and they have their own introduction week. So if you get admitted, I would highly recommend going around and trying those out. And even if you just join one nation, you can participate in any activities at the other nations. Lund also has some interesting museums as well. Some are free to students. I think Lund University, if I'm not mistaken, also owns a few museums. One of which I really like is the Skissernas Museum, which is a museum of like artistic process. It's one of the only museums of that type, I think, in Europe at least. And they have like brown bag lunches on Tuesdays for about like €8, and you get to talk with artists and eat lunch. So, and the restaurant is quite good, I would say. So I think, and there's always events going on like after lockdown, after COVID, of course. So I would just keep an eye out for that if you want to get involved. Lots of organizations in town. And yeah, you also have movies, and there's an ice skating rink now, I think, that's set up since it's gotten cold enough. So yeah, plenty of things to do.
Great. And Max, you have something to add?
Yes, I also found, I used to do sports climbing back home, and I found a gym where you can go sports climbing here. It's very, very, very cheap if you are a student, much cheaper than when it was in Chile, actually. And it's very good. It's very cozy. People there are very friendly. And also I'm playing, you can play like lots of sports, other sports like outdoor football, indoor football. There's a bunch of like small stadiums, I would say they call it like that, but it's like sports centers where you can go play even tennis or go to dance classes. So it's a lot of things going on. Most of them have student discounts also. So and you can sometimes go to try for free. And one of the great things in Lund is that everything is nearby, or most things are really close. So you cannot find something that is too far off. And there's a bunch of other sport activities to do. Yeah.
Definitely great. And I would even add into that very quickly that Lund is also just 15 minutes away from Malmo, which is Sweden's 3rd largest city, and has a lot of different museums, concerts, activities, and things going on there. And we're about 40 minutes on the train away from Copenhagen, which is, of course, Denmark's capital. So if you, for some reason, can't find enough to do in Lund, there's a lot to do in the surrounding area as well. So our next question is, has anyone experienced any levels of racism in and out of Lund or Sweden in general? I know safety and equality is something that's very important to Sweden, but something that a lot of people have questions about. So I'll open that also to anyone who would like to answer.
I guess I will. I haven't experienced it personally myself, but some of my friends, like from the Middle East and from India, have been like yelled at by individuals or told that they should actually learn how to speak Swedish and why they don't speak Swedish, even though they just arrived in the country. So I'm aware it does happen, but I'm not entirely sure how frequent it is. But I would say in general, most people are nice, but there are always going to be those jerks out there, I would say.
Definitely, yeah, that's unfortunate. I would reiterate that it can happen just like it would happen anywhere, I suppose, but is hopefully quite rare. Anything anyone else would like to add?
And I think in my personal experience, I never had any such experience at all. But I think there are some people or counselors for that, I think, which you can report if there is some such events. But I think here, because mostly in Lund, since it's a student city, I think most of them are students here. So I think it's kind of, I never had such experiences. I think it's really safe here.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. There's a counseling center if anyone ever does experience anything, or just in general, if you need someone to talk to at any point in your studies. We're running out of time, so I'm going to try and move through our last couple questions to make sure we get to them. One person is asking if it's difficult or easy to find a job alongside schooling. I don't know if anyone here has part-time work while you're studying.
Yeah, so I can take that maybe. Yeah, I did find like a summer internship like over the summer, but it's not very easy or very tough. I think it's the same elsewhere as it's in Sweden, because I think you have to just keep look out for jobs in LinkedIn or like the websites of the companies, or even like some of my friends have like taken up jobs in like restaurants or like in shops and stuff. So it's not that difficult. Also, I think it's fine.
I would even add on to that from our office, the one thing we mainly recommend is that while, as Limita says, it's possible to find jobs, you shouldn't come to Sweden expecting that you will find a job that will cover your living expenses. So if you are able to find one, think of it as kind of a bonus, extra money, but it probably won't be something that you can find like 40 hours a week. You also have to consider that you are studying as well, so you won't maybe have a lot of time to work. So just keep that in mind. Max, you had something to add there?
Yes, I haven't found any jobs here, but I never quit my job. So I transitioned to 10 hours a week when I came here. And so far it's been going good. It's only been 4 months, but so I cannot tell anything. I cannot advise you to find how to find any job here, but what can I tell? But I can tell is that time-wise, sometimes you can afford to spend 10 more hours a week in some jobs. Like, to give you an idea, it's something that it is feasible. I was very nervous at first because I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. But so far you can manage, because Lund University, they have expressly, is that a word? Sorry, they have literally said that they care about your work-life balance. At least for our masters, they have told us that they worry about that, and they try to keep like a balanced lifestyle, so it gives you sometimes enough time even to pursue a part-time job elsewhere.
Great, that's a great point. Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of students do, is if you have a job from home that will let you continue to work remotely, that's also quite common to do that on more of a smaller basis. And our last question here today, how is Lund different from Stockholm? So I'm not sure if anyone here has studied in Stockholm, probably before, but or maybe visited. I actually have lived in Stockholm and Lund, so maybe I can take that. Well, of course, they're on opposite sides of the country. So Stockholm is about 4 hours or so by train north of us. So Stockholm has a quite different climate in that they are a bit colder and a lot more snow. But the main difference is, of course, that Stockholm is the capital, so it's the major city. It has everything you would imagine, I guess, from a capital city. So a lot more people, a lot more things around. Lund is more of a small town, so it has a bit more of kind of the cozy vibe. And we are a student town, so we have around 140 or so thousand people, I think, and at least half of that are students or people that work at the university. So, but as I mentioned earlier, we do have both Denmark, Copenhagen and Denmark, and Malmo, which is the third largest city in Sweden, very close. So I like to think that Lund has a little bit of both vibes, both a city and a small town close by. I don't know, very briefly, anyone who's visited Stockholm wants to add anything, but that's kind of the main points of the differences. Great, and I want to squeeze in one of my final question here in the last minute. So maybe if everyone could just share as we end here today, your quick elevator pitch of why do you think someone should choose your program? If someone's considering coming to Lund and they're a bit on the fence and they're considering your program, why do you think they should choose it? Or what if a student's looking for this, then this program's the right choice for you, basically. We can start with Trevina.
Okay, yeah, so you should choose my VR AR program, because if you're really interested in that specific technology, you get to one, have facilities that give you access to pretty much the latest hardware in that field. And two, you'll be able to learn more about it. I'm sorry, I only started like this past semester, so that's all I got right now.
No worries, that's great, thanks. And Max?
Sorry. Yes. Well, if you are interested in staying current or exploring new ways of how to manage water, especially with all of the phenomena involving climate change and all the struggles that different countries and different regions in the world are facing right now, it's very useful to know how we can address those challenges and how you can be at the forefront in working with and securing water as a resource. We all know it's important. So this is a great place to be if you want to do that.
Definitely, great. Limitha?
Well, okay, so if because I think my course is not just embedded electronics, because there are 3 different routes you can go to, like analog, digital, or maybe just computer architecture. So if you're like really interested, I think you should first read about the course description. At least that's the reason why I chose this course. You can see and like the practical approach given in each and everything, because you basically design your own ICs and you design your own transistors and stuff, I think, which is really cool. So if you're really interested, and I think you should definitely choose embedded electronics, because like I said, it's mainly because you have the choice to go to any stream you like. And that option also you get because you get to study about it in the first year, and you get to know which is where your interest lies. So yes, yeah. See you all next year, hopefully.
Thank you. Alex?
If you're interested in learning about the supply chain in a holistic manner, from sustainability to how packaging impacts supply chains to humanitarian logistics, this is the place to be. You not only get to learn those perspectives, but you also get to learn from industry of how it looks like in the real world. So see you all next year.
Great. And Momo, we'll end with you.
Yes, I think if you're interested in disasters and climate change adaptation, and you really just want to learn from one of the best people in the fields, which our professors actually are, they're very well connected, then yes, you should choose disaster risk management and climate change adaptation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of our panelists today. It's been great to hear about your experiences and hear your thoughts on the program and studying at Lund. I want to also thank our audience who have given us some great questions to answer here today. And we hope that you all are able to make a successful application, and we see you here at Lund next year. In the last few seconds before we go, I want to just point out again the links that I've sent you here in the chat. So if you want to learn more about any of the programs we've represented here today, or any of the other programs we have in engineering, that's what you can find out on that first link. We had a few questions about student life as well today. So that second link, you can learn more about things like the nations, which Trevina talked about, or the different traditions and things around student life here at Lund. If you have any of those application questions we talked about at the very beginning, you can contact my office, the International Recruitment Team, through the third link, and we're happy to help answer those questions as well. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, all 5 of our students who are here today are also student ambassadors that you can chat with at any time. So if you want to hear more about anything they've mentioned, you can contact them, as well as over 80 other students on the 4th link there. I know we were supposed to have a 6th panelist here today, Saskia from biotechnology. Unfortunately, she had a class that popped up, but she's also available in that link. So if you joined us today hoping to hear about biotechnology or any of the other engineering programs, I know we had someone interested in food tech earlier, jump over to that link and chat with our students there. And then finally, as I mentioned, we have a lot of other virtual events coming up for you for the rest of this semester, including 2 or 3 next week, actually, 2 that will be focused on how to apply to masters and 1 focused on how to apply to bachelor's. So feel free to join us there to get all the step-by-step guide on making sure that your application goes through smoothly. And with that, sorry to keep you about 5 minutes over today, but I think we had a great session, and I'll say thank you again and good evening or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.